Alright, hello and welcome. So, today we absolutely have to talk about the data mining situation in Warframe, as our resident data miner, Void Glitch, has essentially been cease and desisted by Digital Extremes, and told to remove all of his data mined content. So, in this video, we're going to go over the importance of data mining in Warframe, and the downsides to data mining in Warframe. It is very important to understand both sides because there is value on both sides, and I think that there can be a definite middle ground that we can strike that will be good for everyone in the end. So, let's talk first about the kind of basic upsides and downsides. So, the pros. Us, as players, know the exact drop rates and the exact drop locations of items when they enter the game. That is invaluable in a game so much about farming as Warframe, and it's kind of needed in a lot of cases, and desired by many, many players, especially and veterans who really just need to know that shit. Also, it sometimes exposes bugs that might otherwise not be fixed, such as in the past there was a bug with Kubro eggs where they simply would not spawn a specific kind of Kubro. That got fixed because it got looked into, which is quite good. The cons, unfortunately, are the potential vulnerabilities, such as the recent Umbra and Prime Streamline scandals, and it will ruin surprises that we may otherwise have, which... When I say that, I mean like the stats of a new Prime, for example, or the kind of subtitles for a storyline that may be coming up, like for The War Within and the Second Dream got leaked, even though the Second Dream was rewritten. Its original draft did get leaked quite a long time ago. So, with that, DE has responded to the Reddit thread that is basically saying, hey, Void Glitch's repository is down, with this. And this is a very, very well-reasoned thing. It's basically saying that they overlooked the data mines for a good long time because people liked them. But with the advent of the bullshit with people giving themselves Excalibur Umbra prematurely, and with the Prime Streamline bullshit, and so on and so forth, they basically can't ignore it any longer, which is really reasonable, to be fair. Like, that stuff is that does make sense. Like, you don't want your story leaked, and you don't want people to have access to things that they should not have access to, and the ability to like hard cheat in the game. Very obviously, that shit's no good. So with that, it's important to meter yourself against those things, and that's basically what DE is doing. Now, they acknowledge the positives here, which I would personally like to see them go the whole distance with acknowledging those positives. If we're no longer going to have data mines, I think we should at the very least have the big positive of the data mines, which is precise drop tables. For those of you that do not know like how we get those precise drop tables from a data mine, I thankfully backed up the data mine that Void Glitch last posted, and I have a few others. So we're going to be looking at the data mine. Namely, we're going to be looking at the mission decks. The mission decks are very, very important as they tell us the drop tables for any given mission on the star chart. That is huge for knowing where to farm things, and like what rotation things drop on, what exact rate they drop on, and so on and so forth. So we're going to take a look at that real quick. This is ODS. ODS is a very commonly run mission. In fact, on the free-to-play through, I recently ran this mission for like, I think about 5-6 hours-ish, I'll say. And it was very, very productive for me. As you can see, this drop table is absolutely phenomenal. And, bonus, we can see the fairness of the drop table from it being presented just like this. With us being able to obviously see the Octavia Neuroptics have the highest chance to drop in the entirety of Rotation C. On the free-to-play, I was going after that part, and because I have the knowledge that, yeah, this is a totally fair drop table that has like a 23% chance to drop, everything else is lower, and even besides that, all the other rewards in this drop table are amazingly good rewards. Relics are a fantastic reward from any rotation, and as you can see, ODS, kind of packed full of relics, which is great. So, with that, we can see some like very good metered fairness in the drops. And this Just, it gives us information and insight into, like, where we should maybe farm things. Like, for example, like down here, we have the drop table that is shared between Huracan, Despina, Cryotic Front, and Cholistan. This is all very, very important, and if I wanted to, say, go for, I don't know, Neo V5s, I would know that these have a 6.67% chance to drop on Rotation B of this mission. And if I'm looking for that, I can search the entirety of the drop table very, very easily. So if I'm looking for Neo V5s, I can find them. And right down here, I can see that these Neo V5s have an 11.06% chance on Rotation C on Lilith and Baleful. Totally reasonable. Next place where they are, this is a 10% chance on Stefano and such. Totally reasonable. And then if we continue down this path, we can see where all they drop. And moving on from that, on Rotation C, it has about a 15% chance to drop on Callisto, Iapta, Rhea, Umbriel, and Ose. So, this type of information is invaluable to those of us that are farming, which, by the way, is all of us. So, that is invaluable information that I think very much that the player base should have access to. As per why I think that, it's very, very important to me for us to have front-facing information that is accurate about the drop tables in Warframe. Why that is because it keeps DE honest. These drop tables are really, really fair by and large. I kind of disagree with the dilution in some cases and where you might get certain mods from certain rotations further on in the star chart, but that's really neither here nor there. By and large, the drop tables in Warframe are really, really good and fair, but they were not always really fair and good drop tables. So, this is the most recent update. Let's take a trip to the past to see Update 9. Update 9 was back before Void was even doing data mining, and we need to talk about some of the old drop rates. This is for Frost Prime. So, you can see some of the drop rates for this stuff is maybe not great at 0.67% chances and 0.5% chances for things. That shit is what used to go down, and I think I speak for just about everyone saying that I would not like to see the return of pre-data mining drop rates for things. Because when the data mining first started happening, the community got very, very angry, and for pretty good reason, I might say. 0.5% drop rates that are inside of a thing that you already need to farm and have a relatively low-ish drop rate, such as maybe around the 6 and 15% chances that we were talking about before, that are very fair for getting relics, is no good. For reference, common parts, as it stands now with the relic system, have about a 75% chance to drop at max, and rare items have about a 10% chance to drop at max, which is uniform across all rares and commons and such, which ends up making it very, very fair with how the relic system is structured as it currently stands. That being said, that is because he has been very front-facing with allowing the data mines to happen and having those values presented to us at pretty much all times, with a data mine very swiftly following any update that were to happen. I do not want to go back to this. That's a really bad thing to go back to, and I would very much like to avoid it. So, what I would propose as a solution to this is, because I also do not, like, I agree with DE being spoiled on story content, being spoiled on, like, potential stats of new primes, which would lead to disappointment, such in the case of Sybaris Prime and so on and so forth, is no good. But we need to be able to see these drop rates somewhere. It doesn't have to be in the game. It does not have to be, like, directly in the codex, as much as I would absolutely just blow my load if that was in the game proper. That doesn't need to be the case. It needs to be available somewhere. And for me personally, I am of the belief that if the developers can't show us the drop rates, then the drop rates probably should not be how they are. If you have fair and metered drop rates, like these ones that we're looking at right now, totally reasonable drop rates, like the entire mission decks, they're all, like, totally reasonable. Like, let's go to Nidus, which some people had, like, a bunch of trouble with, like, farming him. Let's look at Nidus right now. Here are the Nidus parts. They all have an equal % chance to drop along with all the other rewards in that mission. That is totally reasonable. It makes up almost half of this entire drop table, and that makes total sense. This drop table is really good, and it's fair to the players, and I would like for that to continue. Drop tables like this, I don't think DE should have any trouble publishing. We shouldn't need a data mine for them to just be like, oh yeah, here's what the drops of the Nidus parts are, because these are totally reasonable drop rates for that stuff. So that's what I would like to propose, essentially. If we can't have data mining because of the potential leaks for story and so on and so forth, DE should be upfront with us on the exact drop rates on every mission on the map, on every enemy. Like, what's the drop chances of that mod? What are the drop chances of that relic? And so on and so forth. Because DE has done a very, very good job of making them fair, as we can very plainly see. And I know a lot of people are going to be like, well, DE can tell us whatever numbers they want, and they don't have to be accurate. That's true, but the thing about that is that, like, really, DE is not really like that. They haven't been like that. DE have been really good developers in general. Well, they don't, like, purposefully try to deceive in a lot of cases. So I feel like if they just publish these things, these would be totally fair. And I would really like to see them do that, because these are totally reasonable drop tables. And before data mining, they kind of weren't. They kind of weren't great drops. So I don't want us to go back to this when we can't see anything. And I don't think that we absolutely need data mining. But what I think we do need is for DE to give us these numbers themselves. Because as it stands right now, if they do that, all they're doing is reinforcing, like, the super fairness of their drop rates. And I don't see any reason why that kind of thing can't happen. But yeah, this has been a video that's probably longer than it should be, kind of explaining that stuff. I'll put a link down below to the Reddit thread with Rebecca's response and all that business. And I hope this has been enlightening for some of you that didn't really know about data mining, maybe. And I'll see you guys tomorrow.